So when Shelby got pregnant, she left. She left me. She was freaked out. And she was freaked out. Now I know she was freaked out because of the church.
I did. I dumped him. Not my finest moment. I did. Poor guy. I did. I dumped him. He didn't really have much of an explanation. I didn't give him one. I didn't know how to explain what I was going through, why I felt the way I did. I had no idea what to do. I like to blame it on hormones, but I went to my bishop like I was taught to do. And I sat down with him and the stake president, and they, they were helpful, they were comforting, they were nice until, until their best advice was to give the baby up for adoption because I was an unwed mother in the church. And I think, I don't know, they wanted the baby to go to a worthy family. And I was no longer worthy.
Her brother and her brother's wife at the time weren't able to have children, or they were having trouble having children. So the idea was to adopt our son to them since they couldn't have children and they were a sealed family.
And they told me that I needed to pray and prepare myself for how much it would hurt to give my baby to someone else.
That idea lasted all of 5 seconds.
But I did. I panicked. I freaked out. Because of the church stuff, I felt a lot. And I didn't want to, but I did. I felt ashamed because of how I grew up, how I knew how I would look. I wasn't married. I was, I had gotten pregnant from someone who wasn't a Mormon. There were just a lot of issues there that I knew were going to be very big issues that I would have to face.
So as a non-Mormon coming into a Mormon family, I didn't know that Mormons were really that different from, say, Lutherans or Baptists or any other denomination.
I was obviously very conflicted about that guidance I was given. That wasn't what I wanted to do. But they set me up with an LDS therapist just so I could, I guess, work some things out in my head. I was not allowed to partake of the sacrament anymore. I hadn't held a calling in a while, so I didn't have that taken away or anything, but I couldn't try to get a temple recommend for a while. And yeah, I couldn't take the sacrament. And I had to meet with this therapist regularly. And very nice therapist, very helpful. It was interesting, though, because the things that he helped me with weren't things that he helped me with.
And from the first time I met Shelby's parents, being at a bike rally, I actually just assumed that they were just like Baptists or any other denomination.
He had helped me figure out more so what I didn't want, I guess. I didn't make the best choices when I broke up with my now husband. I made everyone kind of think that he was a jerk. That was my way of, it was easier to hate him. And it was easier to make other people hate him, even though I didn't hate him. It was the total opposite. And talking to this therapist, the more that I talked to him, the more I realized what I did want for my life. And I kind of just stopped seeing him one day because one day I was driving past my husband's work and kind of just decided to stop. And I got out and made him come outside and talk to me, and we didn't stop talking after that. And the therapist that I was seeing, I just lost his number because I didn't need his help anymore. And I didn't talk to my bishop and stake president again much after that because I didn't feel like they made the right call, I guess. I'm sure they meant well, but it was already a really hard thing to deal with, and then to have these people that I really looked up to tell me that I had to prepare myself to give away my baby because I wasn't worthy. I didn't feel like I deserved that, and I don't think that anybody deserves that.
Months later, Shelby calls me, and I can tell that she's been struggling with everything. And we've been talking a little bit off and on. And she just asks me while I'm in the middle of making chicken at Zaxby's. She texts me and says, "Do you want to get married?"
After I had told my parents that I was pregnant, it was a bit of a shock for them, as you can imagine.
When I read the text, I dropped a bunch of chicken on the floor and went to my boss and said, I'll be back in a little while, in the middle of lunch hour. It wasn't until Thanksgiving of 2016 when I met the entire family and I went over to her parents' house.
You know, my parents they've always just been the kind of people that, you know, they've always supported me. They've always loved me.
When I walked into their house for the first time when the whole family was there, I actually didn't think it was going to be that different than walking into anybody else's house for the first time. But from the moment I walked in the door, I knew that something was a little different.
I had told them, and we had kind of made just a game plan, all right, what do we do now?
I walk in and I see pictures of old men hanging in the entryway, and I turned and I asked Shelby, I was like, are these grandparents? Are these family members? And her response was really funny.
I told my brothers that I was pregnant.
She looked at me and she was like, I could tell she was shocked that that's what I had assumed. But she looked at me, she was like, no, that's the president of the Mormon church and the quorum of the 12. And I found that to be very odd.
My oldest brother, when he found out, kind of just went silent, just like radio silence, until I was about 5 or 6 months pregnant, maybe 4 or 5, around there, when my mom made us sit down and talk because we had gone months without speaking. And she made us sit down and have this talk and talk it out. He had taken the fact that I had gotten pregnant very personal, and that wasn't what I had intended. And so we had to kind of work that out. When I told his wife that I was pregnant, her response was, "Don't worry, even though you made this big mistake, you can still repent and be forgiven."
Several years go by. Everything's amazing. Everything's always been amazing between me and Shelby. But several years go by, and tensions keep getting tighter between other family members. Mainly between Shelby and her brother, her oldest brother. and Shelby's oldest brother and Shelby's mom, there's just these tensions that keep growing. And a couple years ago in March, there was a huge blow up. And for the first time in my life, I heard a grown man say, "I live my life better than you, and that's why we don't hang out."
I believe the Mormon church destroyed my family.
That's how our marriage started.